Hey, MCE crew, governments around the world, especially the United States government, is drunk with power and imposing more and more tyranny on we the people each and every day of the week, and they're doing it via economics. We are experiencing an economic tyranny thanks to the politicians, those elected supposedly representatives, but a lot of them have revealed themselves as little teeny tyrants with who occupy these offices that grant them an immense amount of power. Now, I know we got a lot of viewers and subscribers from all over the world. I appreciate you all. And in most of the governments around the world that were once so-called Western democracies that scolded all the other countries whenever they did something that was against human rights. You were engaged in human rights abuses. But now we see in the so-called Western democracies, we see a lot of those politicians, those governments actively oppressing their people in many different ways. So it's quite clear that our governments, and of course I'll be speaking from the perspective of a United States citizen, because that's what I'm familiar with intimately in terms of the government here. And I want to make a clear distinction in terms of government versus your country. Now, I love the United States of America as a country. Yes, I do. But the government leaves a lot to be desired. I've spoken about this many times before in terms of how people are actually converting old pickup trucks into ocean-going vessels to cross 90 miles of Atlantic Ocean to get into this racist country. These are brown people doing that, okay? I've spoken to you about how individuals are crossing the Rio Grande. Individuals are then, after they've done that, crossing burning deserts. Women that make this arduous trip are being abused in just ways that you may not be able to imagine. It's just shameful what happens to some of these ladies. But they're enduring that in order to get to this racist country that all of these politicians just love to run down every day of the week, and they do that in order to divide us. Now, I know at this point you're probably saying, well, what's this got to do with money? Everything. Money changes everything. And what we've seen recently are two things. Number one, when we did a video on how the United States government came out, the tax authorities, the IRS, and they said that they are going to want the tax revenues from every measly ass $600 transaction that your business creates, okay? Now, as I'm talking, I'm going to put up the national debt for a minute and let you see how just astronomical that debt is. And now as you watch that tick up, up, and up, consider the fact that these bastards want to track every $600 increment you make. Now that damn sure ain't taxing the rich, is it? And we encourage people in that video that we did on that subject to pay their taxes. Because if you don't, then you're giving the government another avenue to oppress you, to take you away from your family, quite possibly, put you in a prison cell, impact your earnings. So pay your taxes, okay? And while you're doing that, vote for better representation. And if the representation that you're voting for does not, does not adhere to the principles of freedom, economic and otherwise, and vote their asses out, okay? People always come to me and they talk about term limits. We should have term limits. And it's just so nonsensical to believe that one of these craven politicians is actually going to sign off and vote for a bill that will put them out of power. That ain't happening, okay? You, the voter, you already have term limits in the palm of your hand. All you got to do is just not vote for the guy. Again, I don't vote for any politician more than 2 times. I don't do it. And now some people will make the argument, and it has a lot of validity to it, that If we had term limits, then we would give undue power to the unnamed, unaccountable bureaucracy. People like Fauci, who you never heard of until recently, had his little paws in there, orchestrating different things. And that is a valid argument. But if we exercise term limits using the power of the vote, then of course all of us are not going to do that. But it will keep these politicians on their toes, okay? So you need to really redouble your efforts in 2022 to become truly financially independent. Now look, independence is going to look like something totally different as we move toward 2030 than it may have in previous years and previous decades. Independence of a financial nature may have meant you were rocking the hottest fashions and drove a hot car, okay? But it's going to morph. You got to understand it's morphing. We need to think differently and do different things. And I'm not saying that you can't afford the finer things in life, but we do need to start putting things into a larger perspective because the happy days are over here in America. We got a government that wants to oppress us, a government that is hundreds of trillions of dollars in debt. Now, that debt that I put up there just a few minutes ago, that doesn't count the unfunded liabilities of Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. When you account for that, we're over $300 trillion in debt, okay? So I hope you're not out there relying on Social Security or any of these other entitlement programs. But when you look at that astronomical, impossible amount of debt, you need to start understanding, not just the debt, but their predilection toward continuing to spend uncontrollably. It's like these guys have the plane in a nosedive and they're just pushing the throttle forward. So we're going to have to do things differently. We're going to have to look at the world a lot differently, especially if my prediction about the dollar losing its reserve currency status comes true by the early 2030s. If that happens, standards of living in this country are going to be affected. You can go and take a look at what happened in Britain and the Soviet Union, even though the Soviet Union didn't have a reserve currency after Glasnost and Perestroika. They definitely were in a weird place economically. And in many ways, they've sorted it out. But let's talk specifically now. Let's get into some of the things you need to be doing, you need to be putting in place right now in order to become financially independent. Now, first, let's talk about the fact that you need to understand that the United States has already proven that what they're going to do, the United States has already proven that what they're going to do is they're going to rule, their intent is to dictate behavior through economics. They've already made it clear that you won't eat unless you do what the government says, okay? And you saw what happened with Biden's little attempt at a mandate. The courts so far have quashed it, but I encourage people, I don't give a damn what the courts say. Remember, the courts ruled the wrong way on Dred Scott. So I don't give a damn what the courts say. But so far, they have ruled in such a way that is consistent with liberty in terms of the issue. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying that I have a certain medication or I don't have a certain medication. But either way, I don't care what the court says. No guy in a black robe or woman in a black robe is going to dictate my medical situation, whether I have something or not. That's a choice that I make in conjunction with my doctor, okay? So we've already seen that they're attacking, and they're doing this in Australia. They're doing it in the Philippines. They're saying that you can't work in certain places. You can't conduct commerce in certain places if you don't have certain things. So you think that's going to reverse, or do you think the government is going to become more apt to do things like that? Remember, governments never give up power. Okay, they just take and take and take more. And all of that is antithetical to your liberty, your economic liberty, your financial independence. So, first thing, we talked about this, start a business. Okay? Now, I'm not saying quit your job. This is 2022. We're in the 21st century, and plenty of people have proven that they can work a job and have a business as well. Sit down and seriously consider starting a business. If you want information about the financial services industry, go to mcenow.com. We are actively pushing opportunities in that industry and in the real estate industry. Okay, those are the businesses that my family is in. So that's number one. Get some autonomy. And the reason I say that is because, remember, they're saying in many cases that, oh, you can't work here if you don't do a certain thing. So the control of that environment has been of what food you're able to put on the table, your ability to pay your mortgage. A lot of control is taken away from you in stark relief. Okay, that's very evident if you don't do what they say. Okay, now if you got another source of income, which is a business, whether you work a job or not, you would be able to at least have some income coming in if you had to make a choice that's best for you and your family and is contrary to the edicts of a government or a corporation. Okay, and you might want to say, I want to reconsider the amount of business that I do with the government, local, state, federal, because they're trying to mandate things for contractors. And if you do that, maybe you diversify it with a lot of business that you do with corporations and individuals as well. You do not want to be in a situation where your income is emanating from one source. It's a dangerous position to be in the early 2020s. What's next? Keep some cash on hand. Because what I think is going to happen, because we're starting to see government really feel themselves in terms of their power. So do you really believe that if they had a Fed coin, or if, Bitcoin's not independent, these cryptocurrencies, if you believe remember that pipeline issue that happened and it was held for ransom, and the perpetrators wanted Bitcoin. This happened a while back in early 2021, I think, or late 2020. Anyway, remember how the ransom was they wanted Bitcoin? And it was supposed to be, they want Bitcoin because it's untraceable. And remember how the FBI actually found these people by the Bitcoin transactions and then seized it? Okay, so if you believe that Bitcoin, they're never going to touch that, then you're not paying attention. Bitcoin, all these cryptocurrencies, fine, do what you want. But don't believe that the government can't track that. Don't believe that the government can't seize that if they want to. So you got to have some cash on hand just in case the government decides that they don't want you transacting. You can still go to the grocery store and get something to eat. Now, you don't want an excessive amount of cash on hand because cash loses value at 1% per month for the last 24 months or so. So put that in some, and this is a suggestion, maybe you want to think about putting that in some silver that you can go back down to the silver dealer and trade that in for cash, okay, if you need to, because silver holds its value. And it's used in a lot of industrial applications, so it's sought after. It's valuable. So you want to have some cash and the ability to transact on hand. You don't want to be beholden to, I didn't do what the government said, so now I'm just, in a situation where my kids have got to go hungry because I don't have any money. I don't have any cash. I was relying on the money that's in my bank account, and that's been cut off. Don't think it can happen. The IRS does that now. If you don't, if they've got a tax dispute with you, okay, they can just cut the spigot right on off. I'm looking at my list here. So we got starting a business, keeping cash on hand. Part of that as some silver. Why not gold? You can do that if you like, but I'm suggesting silver in this case because silver is far less expensive. And so when you go to trade it in, let's say you trade in an ounce of gold. Right now, you get about $1,800. You might not need $1,800, although you can buy gold in smaller denominations. We'll talk about that later. Pay off that high interest debt. That credit card debt, get rid of it, okay? Because you don't want to be in a position where, if you've been impacted financially by, the fact that you don't want to play ball with the government, or whoever else, some corporation that you work for or some government that you work for has said that they need you to do something that not involving your job, okay? He just wants you to do something because they said do it. Don't think that this one issue is the only one. There are going to be more. This is a little proving ground to see how many people will play ball, okay? You need to basically have that high interest debt under control, paid off is preferable, because that's a form of slavery as well, okay? Now, I'm talking about that credit card debt. Credit cards are convenient. I'm not going so far as to say you don't need one, but what I am saying is when you look at 16% interest on average, it's making everything you buy more expensive if you don't pay it off within the 30-day cycle. So if you really want to have economic liberty, you cannot be beholden to Visa, Discover, MasterCard. You need to look at that debt, get it paid off. Any of these cars out here that you got, it's a great feeling to drive a paid off car. Trust me. I'm not worried about form or fashion. I don't give a damn who thinks what of my car. I drive a Volvo wagon, okay?
What kind of black man drives a Volvo?
A black man that appreciates safety.
Paid off. We have another car. That car is paid off. And it's a little fancy car, but I hardly ever drive it. And that's a problem because it's deteriorating because of that. Anyway, work toward owning your home. This is another big one. You need a roof over your head. And I'm not saying, I've said in other videos, I'm not a fan of paying off your home and giving all that money to the mortgage company. I am a fan of having the ability to do that if you need to, okay? Now, the reason I don't like to put every dollar into the mortgage and pay that sucker off in one fell swoop is because now, sure, your home is, increasing in value quite probably, but the issue is if you need some of that equity, then you got to rely on someone else or someone else's permission to allow you to have it. So you got to either get a equity loan, you got to get a reverse mortgage, or you got to sell the home. In each case, you need some other person to say, okay, I'll buy the home for the price you want, or this bank will give you the reverse mortgage or the equity line. So have the money available to pay the home off if you need to, but be very careful about putting all of that money over into something where it's not, your home is not liquid, okay? And your home is an asset. It's an asset in more ways than one. It's an emotional asset as well. But your home is something, you can sell a stock and, fine, but you need a roof over your head. So just have the peace of mind, grow toward having the peace of mind of knowing you couldn't do it if you needed to, okay? You can make those payments on that home and keep that home for your family in the event you're separated from your income by a tyrannical government. The last one here, there's two more, real quick. Be financially aware. Don't trust your financial situation to a broker or a financial advisor. Listen, those may be members you want on your team, okay? I'm not saying don't contract with them. I'm not saying don't do business with them. I'm saying if you do, don't just set it and forget it, okay? Don't put your financial future, don't make your financial future the responsibility of someone else, okay? Because one of the things that these financial planners are doing is they're not really swinging for the fences, okay? And if they're averaging 5, 6, 7% right now, that's got you way behind the 8 ball, okay? Some of these guys would just put you in an index fund and forget about it, all right? Now, we do use index tools here in our business, but that's not something that we put you in and just forget about it. We're constantly looking at the performance of it and seeing if it continues to meet your needs. And if it doesn't, there are other steps that we can take. But don't just fly on autopilot with that. You've got to understand your financial situation. That means you've got to commit some study. This is your future. This is the future of your family. This is your economic legacy. It cannot be trusted to some guy or some lady who is a credentialed practitioner, because at the end of the day, it's not their responsibility to make sure that your family and you are financially independent. It's just their responsibility to say, hey, look, this thing's performing. It's not losing money. It's not really beating inflation, but hey, so get the skills to do that. And I trust that you're watching this information, and I don't care where you are in the world. Try to adhere to these, okay, if you can, in your part of the world, because all these governments are going to a tyranny. Now, finally, and I'm going to wrap this up. Get some skills. Get some hard skills, okay? I went out and I got my emergency medical technician certification years ago, okay? And I haven't practiced that in a while, but I know the basics, okay? I still look over my books every now and then. And I do know the basics of how to, stabilize a situation. My brothers are mechanically inclined, okay? I have a brother who actually, we have this junkyard, it's a chain actually of junkyards in our area called Crazy Ray's. And my brother, my middle brother, he actually built a truck. He built a pickup truck with parts he assembled from Crazy Ray's. And he actually went through the process of getting that registered with the DMV. And one of the interesting things is, in order to start it, you had to flip a light switch. But that's a hard skill. You have got to go out and obtain a practical skill, because where we're going in this economy, and a lot of this economy is going to be just filled with opportunity to make a lot of money. But where we're going, you can best believe that you don't want to be caught out there without a skill, because it may get to the point where you have to use that skill to help you make some money, or it might be just a thing where my brothers, they come to my property to do their brake jobs, because we have a lot of space. They come up here to do their brake jobs and things like that, and they're not going to the mechanic and spending that money. And I'm not saying that you necessarily want to do that. They've been doing it for years. They're very comfortable with it, but they have the ability to do it. Okay. They've got the ability to do it, and it saves them a tremendous amount of money. All right. So look out there, gain a skill. Maybe that skill is, I don't know, cooking, if you don't know how to do that, or, something in the medical field, or mechanics, electricity, plumbing, canning your food preservation, farming. Okay, start with a garden, grow some fruit trees. I don't know what it is, but obtain a skill. Guys, look, that's it for today. I told you that every now and then I was going to do a longer video once a week. And that's the one, I'm going to try to do one once a week. But that's what we have for today. As far as getting that financial knowledge, don't let the fact that the system has made things deliberately complicated, and they come on CNBC with all this, highfalutin language. That's in order to deliberately confuse you. You got Google. You're on, or DuckDuckGo. To hell with Google. They're oppressive too. But you've got at your fingertips the ability to edify yourself. All right, guys? So I appreciate the time. I appreciate you. And I'll talk to you soon.